Welcome everyone to the 2025 grant information session. If you just go to the next one, Megan, I'll just run through a couple little housekeeping things. So we already said that when you get here, please enter your name and your organization in the chat. That's just so we know who was able to be here today. If you wanted to rename yourself on the screen, sometimes things come in weird, like I just had to rename mine. But you can click on your video screen. There's if you hold your mouse over your screen, there's three little dots in the top right corner of your video screen, and you can choose the option to rename so that your name is actually in there. But it's okay if you can't figure that out. Just put your name and org in the chat, and we'll figure it out. Video's on if you can. If you're not speaking or when you're not speaking, please mute your mic so that we can make sure we don't get any background noise. We are recording the meeting. We're going to have a Q&A time at the end, but please feel free to enter any questions you might have in the chat at any time. Between me and Megan and Becca, we will try to kind of monitor that and answer questions as they arise as much as we can. So today we're going to run through some just brief introductions. Like, we'll introduce ourselves. We know a lot of you, but not everyone. So want to make sure we say who we are, and then we'll run through kind of our philosophy about grant making and how we are thinking about it. Run through the overview of what grant cycles we have available this year. And then we want to preview for you the new dashboard, which is when you log into our online grant system, the look of it has changed. It seems like it's going to be more intuitive and helpful, but we do just want to preview that for you, and then run through some of the tips about how to get started on writing a grant application, some tips and tricks, and go over some follow-ups. And our media toolkit, we had some new branding, so we'll go over that, and then open it up for our general Q&A. So let's get started. All right, so in general, this is what we're thinking about. We are aiming in the direction of what we call trust-based philanthropy. So
hey, Ashley,
yeah.
Do you want to just quick introduce ourselves?
Oh yeah, sorry.
we put it in there and then we didn't do it.
Go ahead. Put a slide in front of me. I'm going to follow it. Okay. Sorry, I'm Ashley Cousins, community grant making staff here at Charlevoix County Community Foundation. I've been at this about almost 6 years, actually. Yeah, I'll be jumping into this in a minute. So Megan, go ahead.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Havrilla DeHogue. I'm the Youth Advancement staff member here. Been here about 2.5 years or so. And I support grant making mostly through the youth cycle. And then I also work with the schools for student success and work on scholarships. And Becca's here helping today too. So Becca, do you want to just give a wave and an introduction?
Sure. I'm Becca. I'm the administrative assistant at C3F. I've been here for less than a year. I can't even do the months. I don't know. And yeah, just here to help. And then I will be leaving shortly, but learning a lot too, which is exciting.
And we are super grateful for Becca for all of the reasons, but definitely today for helping us out with some of the technology navigating. So thanks, Becca.
Sorry to jump in there. Go ahead.
No, that was great. See, I need to be kept on track. Luckily, I have a good team. Okay, so as I was saying, for our grant making philosophy, kind of the direction we're aiming for is this trust-based philanthropy. In trust-based philanthropy, we really emphasize relationships over transactions. So the way that we think about grant making is more as like a partner and coming alongside and working with organizations like you all who are out there doing this important work to meet community needs. And if we can be helpful and flexible and transparent in our process and partner with you, we just think that makes everything run more smoothly and do a better job of meeting the needs of our community. So what that kind of looks like for us is a lot of active listening. We are always asking you what you think about things, and we really want to know. So I always say when we're doing like grant follow-up and stuff like that, always interested in the good, the bad, and the ugly. If there is any, we want to know about it so that we can kind of adjust and, make tweaks and changes. So we're interested in your feedback always. We're always kind of adjusting things. We're also kind of working from this space of trying to meet partner needs, so meeting your needs and the needs of the community while also preserving donor intent, because the reason that we have grant dollars in the first place is because generous people set up funds here at the Community Foundation because they care about our community and wanted to impact, maybe different topic areas or different needs in the community. So we told our donors that when they set up their the funds, that we would preserve that intent for them. So we have to kind of balance those two things. Our dollars can do whatever they can do, and we do have a lot of different dollars available, different variety of topics and things that we can impact. And, we have certain limitations as well, right? But in general, when it comes to working with you all as our partners, we also want to try and remove any barriers, or I think of them as hoops to jump through. Like, we don't want to make you jump through a whole bunch of hoops for no reason. So we try to make sure that our processes are streamlined, that our forms make sense, that how we're doing things works and fits into how you're doing things. Our bottom line goal is to make impactful grants to improve quality of life in Charlevoix County. So the implications of kind of this philosophy, the way we're thinking about it and our goals, is that you as applicants get to ask for what you need when you need it. And then we continue to streamline kind of our forms and processes and work with you throughout the whole process, from inquiring about a grant all the way through follow-up. So quick overview of the grant cycles we have available. And if some of you are new to this process, we're happy to talk, more in depth about some of that intro stuff. But a lot of you we've worked with before, so we want to, talk a little overview, and then we'll get into some of the specifics for this year. We don't have a ton of big changes to announce this year. I feel like in the last 5 years that, for sure, we've had kind of more or less some bigger changes, each year. And this year we're like, this feels like we've honed it in pretty well, that we're in a good spot. That doesn't mean we're not still listening and tweaking things, but we just don't have as many big changes to announce this year. So overall, our grant cycles, we have our environment and land use cycle coming up as a March 1st deadline. This cycle focuses on requests for environmental education, protection, restoration, and sustainability. So we're looking at, environmental impact in a positive way in Charlevoix County and the Lake Charlevoix watershed. Our arts and culture cycle shares that deadline, but it's a totally different topic, obviously. So arts and culture grants are also due March 1st, and those are looking to support arts, music, history, and cultural programs, projects, and organizations in Charlevoix County. So with those two topic areas, one thing that you're allowed to do is ask us for whatever you need. If your organization needs something more like capacity building or like a general support request, then that's where we would look to see what's the mission of your organization. So organizations that are focused on the environment, for example, could ask us for general support in the environment cycle. Or an organization that doesn't have an environmental mission, but has an environmentally focused project, could ask us for funds in the environment and land use cycle. Same for arts and culture. So we will hear from a lot of our, arts and culture partners out there in that arts and culture cycle, but sometimes we hear from schools, or we'll hear from, another type of organization that has something they're trying to do that's related to history or culture or arts or music in that cycle. In May 1st, we have our community priority cycle. Those are our unrestricted dollars. So really anything is eligible. That does tend to make this cycle very competitive because everything's eligible. We also have some health funds that we typically have, available in the community priority cycle, but last year we started allowing those health funds to be applied at any time of year. So say we get a request in the environment cycle or the geographic cycle in the fall or something, and it's health related, we could apply those dollars. Those are just it's an internal process. It's not a ton of money. That's why we stopped calling it out specifically in community priorities. But I do like to just mention that we have some health dollars available. They're available any time of year, but through one of our other grant cycles. It's not enough money for it to be a standalone cycle, if that makes sense. And then in October 1st, we have our geographic enrichment cycle. That is kind of the umbrella for essentially we have four funds that we give out in that cycle. We have funds for Beaver Island, for Boyne City, for East Jordan, and for Charlevoix. So organizations or projects that are impacting one or more of those communities can request funds in the geographic enrichment cycle. So anything that's happening, say, on Beaver Island would be eligible for those Beaver Island dollars, right, in the geographic cycle. Same with East Jordan. If you've got a project in East Jordan, that's a great fit for the geographic enrichment cycle. If in that, and we just made a note that if you're impacting more than one community, you can still apply for the geographic enrichment cycle. Potentially, we would do it case by case, but you'd have to share the percent of impact in each community and a specific deliverable. So if you're going to say, we're going to provide, let's say, swim lessons for Boyne City and East Jordan, you would have to, that's a good example of one that could fit in the geographic cycle because you have a deliverable and a percent of your project that would be taking place, helping people from each of those communities. Okay. Turn it over to Megan now.
Awesome. Thank you. So in November, going right along the calendar, November 1st, 2025 is the Youth Needs Cycle. The Youth Advisory Committee oversees the grant making from this fund. So those of you who are not familiar with the YAC, it's a group of 16 high school youth from the Charlevoix County schools. They have representatives across their grade levels, and typically they serve for their entire high school career. Some of our other schools, though, they come in for a year or two. And the Youth Needs Cycle is really intended to support programs and projects that benefit youth in Charlevoix County. It doesn't have to be across the whole county. It can be in a specific area, so that's okay. Basically, if you're doing youth serving work or work with youth, you're likely eligible for this cycle. That being said, every 3 years, the YAC conducts what they call a needs assessment. And this is a survey that they come up with and then they give to their peers. Typically, it's given to 7th through 12th grade. And it's an opportunity for youth in the county to figure out and share what their top concerns are, what areas they think are really positive influences on their life, areas for concern, all of those things. We take those results and we kind of look at the data and we come up with the top 10 youth concerns. And then last time we took priority areas and we said, hey, these are the 2 areas that we really want to see some movement on. So this year, 2025 is going to be a survey year. So those of you who have applied with us in the past have been aware of those priority areas. We'll see what they are. We won't know those results probably until the summer. We'll make sure that we give you an update, of course, probably in the fall when we get those results, because that's going to impact their grant making. That being said, all requests that are going to serve youth are eligible for the Youth Needs Cycle, typically, okay, even if it's not in a priority area. The priority areas are there to really indicate the top things that they want to see their dollars go towards. So even if you are not in, even if your project doesn't fall into a priority area, it doesn't make you automatically not eligible. These are still evaluated on merit and all of those things. So don't worry too much. Nothing's really changed there. We just don't have the results yet because it's still early. So we're still working on that. The other thing that we like to point out for the YAC cycle is that we typically allow for applicants in a priority area the opportunity to do an interview. If they are selected after that grant application is in, we just give them this next step to talk with our YAC a little bit more about how their project or program is really going to move see some movement in those priority areas. So it really evaluates the fit for that. I will do that in a pre-screening call with you. In the intake call, I'll say, yeah, that sounds like it's in a priority area. But the YAC also evaluates that fit as well. And sometimes it's a great fit, but we already got all the information that we need, or maybe we're really crammed on interviews this year. So we're going to kind of take it as a case-by-case scenario. My recommendation that I give everybody is, if you're going to fall into a priority area, I will always give you the date of the interviews. And I recommend that you save the whole time period because they're in person. They're typically in 10 to 15 minute slots and they're scheduled on a first come, first served basis. So we really go through a lot of organizations quickly and we need to make sure that we can get to everybody. So that's my recommendation for that. But more on that to come soon, just not yet. Sorry, I have to click this twice. All right.
Thanks, Megan. So all of those cycles that we mentioned so far are what we call hard deadlines. So each of those has a specific deadline where you have to have your application in by that deadline, or else it will not be considered for funding. These cycles we call our kind of ongoing cycles have rolling deadlines. So our urgent needs cycle, mini grants are the ones that will apply to most of you, but we also have a couple that I'll mention here too. So for urgent needs,
Is
sorry. So for urgent needs, we can impact things that's trying to help people in Charlevoix County who are trying to access food, shelter, clothing, healthcare, mental health services, utility assistance, things like that. And also capacity building for organizations whose missions focus on helping people access those basic and urgent needs. We have a total of $50,000 available per calendar year. So the grant cycle opens, all of these cycles open early January and then go until December 15th. And so December 15th isn't like a deadline, but it is, as we get towards the end of the year, we want to make sure we have enough time to turn around a decision for you before the new calendar year. So that's why we have that, like it's open almost the whole calendar year, just as soon as we're back from New Year's, in the holiday break, and then right before holidays again in December. For mini grant cycle, this is for smaller requests for up to $1,500 that fall outside the other grant cycle frames. Or it may be for something that was like an unanticipated need or an opportunity that has come up. Could be used for capacity building as well. And we have a total of $20,000 available per calendar year. So for mini grants. We also have our Housing Solutions Fund. This is specifically looking to support housing at a variety of price points in Charlevoix County. So there's a whole list of pre-development activities that are allowed to be requested through the Housing Solutions Fund. And that's listed in the grant guidelines on our website. It's not going to apply to a lot of people that are on this call, so I'm not going to go too deep in there, but happy to talk about it, more specifically with anyone who's interested. And then Megan, did you want to say anything about student success since that's yours?
Sure. So student success, you won't see that promoted on our website. It's for our Charlevoix County Public Schools. I know we have a few school partners on here now. You should have gotten an email this week with your dollar amounts. The dollars available are really dependent on endowments for student success funds by each school district that we support. So just a reminder here that this does require prior authorization from the superintendent. So how you want to get that information out to your staff is totally up to you. These are available though on the calendar year. And you'll see this note here about the ongoing cycles, about when they're open, but pretty much it's the same process as everything else. Give a call, let us know what you're kind of thinking about, and we'll be able to help you through that. And there are specific goals for student success, things that we're trying to do with those dollars. So sometimes we'll talk to you about, if student success is a good fit, or if there's a better fit available. So just like to mention it because we do have all these cycles, but that one's a little bit more particular.
Yep. And we do have a little note here about donor advisors may participate in any of the cycles, and that's true for any of the cycles. So anytime you request a grant from us, and you can switch to the next slide, Megan. We have, the money that we know about, and I'm usually pretty upfront about that. We don't tell you how much you can ask for. We kind of give you the context of, well, in this cycle we have X amount of dollars available, and leave it up to you to make a good case for what you need, or decide on a reasonable request, based on what you actually need. But donor advisors are kind of a wild card. So we have a pool of folks who have funds here at the Community Foundation for which they determine how their grant dollars are spent each year. So they're advising those funds, hence that very lingo-y term. But basically, donor advisors can do whatever they want. They can participate in the cycles at any level on any project. And so that's there's a lot of reasons why we don't want to specify how much you can ask for, but that's definitely one of them, because we want to make sure that if there's a chance of you getting funded, we want you to have it. So to get started on any application, you have to have a conversation with us. What we do in that conversation is we determine eligibility. So are you eligible for these dollars? And then we also help try to strategize with you about where you might have your best chance of funding. So if you have some ideas, like a lot of times, if an organization has a couple needs coming up, someone will call me, we'll talk through them. I'll be like, okay, well, this one could fit in this cycle, or it's eligible for these 2 cycles, but here's where I think you'd have a better chance based on what I know. So all applications begin with that conversation. And it's less about grilling you for anything, and more about making sure that we're giving you your best chance of funding with us. So you'll want to schedule calls. Through Calendly, which we have links right on our website. We'll show you that in a minute. So you want to talk with me for most of the grant cycles, and then with Megan for any youth related requests. So anything you might think that's going through youth needs, or if it's schools usually reach out to Megan because there's those student success dollars available. And then we also tag team urgent needs and mini grants. So if you're already talking to Megan about a youth need or something, and it's a smaller amount, like just keep talking to Megan. We don't need to make you jump through any hoops there. So once your request is deemed eligible, once we're like, yep, this sounds good, I think, go for this cycle, we'll provide you with an access code to the application. And that's when you can go ahead and start your application. Couple notes about the Calendly though. You have to, when you set up the link, or when you set up the appointment with us, it links directly to our calendar. So when you're seeing what times I have available for calls, it's linking directly to my calendar, shows up right on my calendar and everything. It does not give me your phone number. So you have to call me at that time, or Megan. And then if you want to have more than one person on the call, just send us a Zoom link for that, because we don't really do conference calls. But we can do a Zoom, obviously, very easily. So a couple options there. And then here's those links on our website. This is on our Apply for a Grant page. So those links are live. And also, this is a great page for reading through our grant guidelines for each cycle, and just learning a little bit more about who you would contact for each cycle.
Great. So I'm going to walk you through the new dashboard experience. I put a lot of screenshots on here, but I can also back out of this presentation and walk us all through it if we'd like. So we have a new dashboard. It will look different. If you were to log in, it's going to look different now. And I'm just going to walk you through the toolbar real quick. So there is a home button. It looks like a house to navigate to your main dashboard. That's actually where it will default to. So the screen that you'll see will be that one. This apply page has a little page icon next to it, is how you can navigate to grant opportunities and start a new request. The organizational history tab has a little kind of like a refresh arrow by it. That will view general information about requests submitted by an applicant from the organization. And then they call this people icon the menu icon, but it's people, but it's menu, right? You can log out or you can edit your profile here. Just a note, this is a picture from a test site. Ours right now is a very, very light color, and it's a little difficult to see. So we're hoping to update it soon. We just haven't gotten a chance to do it yet. So just a flag for you if you're having a hard time seeing it, kind of move your mouse around a little bit. It might just be a matter of it being very lightly colored. So when you log in if you're trying to find a grant application that you're looking for, you're going to go to that apply page, and you're going to have to enter that access code that Ashley mentioned just on the last slide. You're going to obtain that access code during the grant intake call. And just a note, it is case sensitive, which we'll remind you about, okay? And you're going to type it in right here. This will say search bar or access code. Once you type it in, you have to hit enter. There's not like a go button or anything like that. So I did a test one. It says go Lions, because go Lions. You'll type it in, you hit enter, and then this card comes up that shows you what the application is that is available, okay? And it will give you some information, like the description might tell you about the focus and the goals of the grant. There might be a link, such as grant guidelines, which you could click, and it would take you to that link. There'll be important information, like the due date of it. And then it will also tell you when it closes. From here, you also have this preview and apply button that you can take a look at. So just so you know, though, that if you hit preview, like maybe you're someone who doesn't want to type it in right away, you just want to see all of the questions and kind of marinate on it a little bit, you can do that. But if you hit preview, it's going to show you the full question list, including if you don't have to answer the question. So for example, in the youth needs cycle, we ask you if you fall into a priority area. If you select one of those priority areas, there's an additional question you have to answer. So it will show you all of those questions. It will branch to them. It will show all of those, but you might not actually have to answer it. So just a note there. And then you can hit apply. Now, the interesting note here is if you've already started an application with us in the Go Lions grant info session application, if you go to hit apply again, you're going to get a warning. And it's going to say something like, hey, Megan, your application for the Super Bowl for 2025 has already been started. Do you want to start it again? Or do you want me to take you to the one that you've already started? And you can make that choice. Typically, you're going to go to the one that you started, but some of you occasionally maybe have a different request that you're working with a different partner, and you might need to start it again. So just a note there, it's supposed to help us cut down on those duplicate requests, but you might get a little bit of a warning in that case. All right. When you get into the application, Ashley, do you want to talk about this one actually?
Yeah, sure. And I was just gonna re-emphasize that like everything Megan had on that previous screen was fake information, just so that nobody tries to go in and put Go Lions in, it won't work. But once you're in the application itself, I did just want to show. So we have the question list. This is another spot. This pink circle is another spot where you could get the full list of application questions, and we understand that that's helpful. For people who are working in teams, which often you're working with a group, or maybe you need approval on something, or you need to have your team be working on gathering the information. So having the full list of questions of what's going to be on the application is helpful. So I just wanted to show you another place where you can find that. And that's, you've already entered the access code here. This is in the application. You can see where it says applications are due no later than blah, blah, blah. That's the actual application. You can start filling it out, but you can still access the list of all the questions without having to try to print from this website or whatever. The yellow highlight at the top is a button called Collaborate. And again, if you're working with a group of people, or you have a couple people who are writing it or editing it, or maybe you need approval, someone needs to proofread it for you, you can invite other people to view your application right here in the system using that Collaborate feature. So you would click on Collaborate, it opens up a little a window pops up, and you invite people by their email address. So that's another feature that can be really helpful to have people co-writing or editing or proofreading.
Okay, this is where it gets a little bit, there's more to it here. This is your home dashboard page. If you were to log in, it would automatically take you to this page. If you wanted to see what opportunities are available, where that Go Lions thing was, you would hit the See Opportunities. I don't know, you'd call that kind of like a drop-down tab, if you will. Okay, on here, there are two sections. So you have the to-do panel, which will be on the left-hand side of the screen typically, and then you'll have the request section. And the request section will always be designated into 3 different columns. And we'll go through each one of those here. The first column is action needed. Okay, so this is a column that displays any forms that are due right now, that are coming up, or they're currently due. You'll also notice that it will probably show up in your to-do panel. It's going to show things that are assigned to you. For grants, upcoming is going to be blank. You don't have to worry about that. Okay, we already talked about what See Opportunities will do. But this action needed column means there is action needed. All right. The no action column is going to display any forms or processes that don't require any further action from you as the applicant. It probably means that administrators are processing the request, or maybe the application is approved and there is no sort of follow-up or anything for you to do, okay? You might notice in this one, in my sample, there's a little ribbon icon. In this case, that ribbon icon is telling you, hey, you have an approved request. It could be in the yellow section or the green section. And I'll talk to you about what that means in just a second. And the historical column is going to display any historical data for the applicant if the grant has been closed, denied, or abandoned. Abandoned, remember, means like maybe you had a duplicate application, maybe you decided to not apply, perhaps you missed the deadline and we had to abandon it on our side. There's a couple of reasons why it might show that way. Hopefully we'll cut down on those from duplicates at least, but closed, denied, or abandoned will show up in that historical section. If you have a lot of requests in here for your organizational history, that search bar is still available at the top, so you can always look in there as well. Okay, and I'll talk about what these colors mean in just a moment. All right. So yellow means action, and it will go there for you. White, which is actually kind of like a light gray. I wouldn't really call this white per se, but it reminds me of like dirty snow. This white is doesn't need any action taken on it, but it's not yet approved necessarily. It's just like no action needs to be taken on your end. It will probably move if the administrator does something. I can't really think of a lot of situations in which you all would see white because we usually like take action, right? So you guys will probably be okay there. The green means it's approved and doesn't need any further action, but that might also appear in your historical column. So if you go to log in and you know you've gotten previous grants with us, those will be green with that ribbon in the historical one once they're closed. Not when they're approved, but once they're closed on our end. Not really a lot for you to worry about there. Gray meaning abandoned or denied. So you notice here that the word closed is not in there anymore because if it's closed, it was probably an approved grant, so it would be green. So abandoned or denied. This red icon means a little alarm plaque here means, hey, something is due soon, and it might be overdue, but that icon there tells you that there's something that needs to be done. And then to access any of these applications or forms that you want to take action on, our suggestion is to click on the name of the form, not the header. So in this case, you're going to click on final report, spring grant process, or C3F follow-up report. If you click the header, you'll still be able to get there. You might have to make a couple extra clicks. You'll figure it out. It's okay. But for now, I would recommend like click on this, fall into fall, click on those things because those are going to take you directly to what you're looking to do. One thing to note here is that let's say that you just had a request that was approved in the geographic or the youth needs 2024 cycles. You're going to be like, well, how come that's not in the no action? Well, it's not in the no action column because it's already telling you that you'll have a follow-up due within a year. So it's going to be under action needed, but that action needed will have a ribbon just like this example does, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. I'm just gonna pause for a second, let you all kind of marinate in that. I promise that it really is, I think, easier. Gone are the days of these like extra tabs and trying to scroll and trying to see this button that says view application that's really small. Hopefully this will help. But it's new and we're still learning. So I'm just gonna pause real quick. I'm gonna advance this slide and then give it a quick pause. Okay, cool. You can keep thinking about questions. You can put them in the chat. Of course, there's a note here for tips and tricks. It just says it at the bottom. This dashboard is brand new for us too. We are still learning how to utilize it. So please call us if you run into anything wonky. Like we're gonna want to see what it looks like for you as well, so that we can give feedback on the software and on the changes that have been made. So bear with us.
Yeah. So just a couple of kind of general tips and tricks for grant writing success. So number one, know your audience. So that's one of the things that I kind of work with you, Megan and I work with you guys on in the intake call is like, okay, if you're going to write this for the environment committee, they want to know about environmental impact, right? The Beaver Island committee wants to know about what's going to happen on Beaver Island, etc. So we kind of work with you on strategizing like, okay, it might be eligible for multiple cycles, but if you are going to ask in this cycle, here's the kind of, I don't want to use the word spin, that's way too strong, but here's kind of the emphasis that you want to make on certain things. Make a strong case for your needs. So including data can be helpful, writing it so that, sometimes when you all are subject matter experts on whatever you're asking for, and your elbows deep in it and all of the background and everything, I always say, like, take a step back, think about someone who has never heard of your organization, doesn't know about this need, write it so that anyone could understand the need, because we have new reviewers coming on all the time, and some of them may not be familiar with your org, even if you've asked us at the Community Foundation for funding before. All of our grant making happens by committee, so we have to make sure we're bringing those committee members along on what the needs are, and and who you are, what your organization is doing. So you are allowed to ask multiple times per year, right? So we have all these different grant cycles, all these different dollars available. And just because you ask for a grant in the arts and culture cycle doesn't mean you can't ask for a grant in community priorities or Charlevoix committee or whatever. So you can request, we kind of say as a general rule, one request per organization per cycle. There's a little asterisk because sometimes in certain circumstances for really large organizations, like especially in the geographic enrichment cycle, like schools or cities might sometimes have more than one request in those cycles because the elementary school is doing something totally different from the high school or whatever. So, we do have, like, everything we say is really not a hard and fast rule. It's like guidelines, right? Like a pirate ship. Let's talk about it, see what makes sense. So we just wanted to kind of note, like, if you ask multiple times in the year for the same project, totally allowed. Keep in mind, though, that the committee that's reviewing it might be different. So the C3F committee that's reviewing it might be different, but the pool of donors is the same. So if you ask for something, in community priorities and it doesn't get funded, all the donors did see it, you know what I mean? So you can't, you can ask again, but it is good to just remember, like, okay, all of their donors saw this too. It's just a little bit of a nuance that we like to, mention. You still have to call us and do the eligibility call before you get the application code, for that next cycle, but certainly repeat requests are allowed. They've been very successful in certain cases. Sometimes donors didn't see it the first time, they see it the second time. So there's a lot of things that can happen. It's a very case by case, kind of process. But just call us anytime with questions. We're happy to provide feedback too. Since I'm not the one making any decisions, really, I'm happy to look at your proposal ahead of time if you want me to, if there is time, and provide feedback. Sometimes I can help get ahead of questions that might come up for the committee or things like that. The longer I do this, the more I learn, right? Yeah, next up, sorry. Okay, so for follow-up, we just wanted to there are a couple of options for follow-up, and we won't spend a ton of time on this, but wanted you to have the slides so that you could look at it and write it down if you want to. But you have options to have a conversation with us or to do a written summary in our system. No matter what, everyone has to complete a couple of steps in the online system after the grant is done anyway. But some work is just better to have a conversation about, or we love to see your work in action. So we are always on board for site visits. It's just not always possible or appropriate to do a site visit, but we can do phone calls, Zoom calls, or you can do the written summary. That's totally fine. Generally, follow-ups are due within 6 or 12 months of the grant award, depending on what cycle it is. So urgent needs and mini grants have a kind of a default 6 month time frame, but we can be pretty flexible on the time frame as long as work is progressing. Next up. The order of things, we just wanted to walk you through. We piloted this a little bit in 2024, but we've changed it a tiny bit. So we just wanted to share the tweak. When we send you your grant award letter, we also include a link to this form where you can tell us how you want to do your follow-up. You don't have to tell us the minute you get the award. You don't have to know if you want a site visit or a phone call or a written, report or whatever. That's fine. But this just gives us a heads up on when and how to follow up with you. So it also gives us kind of a heads up in terms of like that something is happening, especially if you're going to do the written summary, because a lot of times, like, we're busy like getting more grants in the door, out the door, it calls in and grants out, and so we don't want to lose track of the good work that you're doing. That's the most fun part. We definitely want to be involved or know about it, if it makes sense. So yeah, this is just a way for us to kind of keep our finger on the pulse of what's going on with your help. So, and then after you do the form, we follow up with you in the way that you would like us to, and then you complete those couple steps in the online system. Photos are always encouraged, and submit it, and then you're done. And that is when Megan was talking about closed grants that will show up in your historical tab, that's when it's closed, is when the follow-up is done, submitted, and everything is finished.
And we've had a chance to process it.
Yes.
Don't be too worried if it's a little bit longer.
Yeah. Once you submit it, you're done. Okay, and then finally, we just wanted to flag for you. You may have noticed we did a brand refresh this year. So new logo, new colors, new fonts, all that kind of stuff. And so we added a media toolkit to our website. So just know that that's there. We've got a link for it here. I can put that link in the chat as well if that would be helpful. But we would like for you guys to start using the new logo as soon as possible, so that we're all, looking the same way.
Put that in there for you.
Oh, thanks. And then other quick updates. I'll just mention scholarships are open and due March 1st. Did you want to say anything about that, Megan?
Just the bullet point underneath there. So if you have a graduating high school senior that you know is looking for scholarship opportunities, please have them apply. Call me if you have questions. We have opportunities for folks regardless of what post-secondary path that they're taking. And then outside of graduating high school seniors, we do have a smaller pool, another cycle for scholarships for those who are in the nursing program. Basically at NCMC, and we have some other hospital ones as well. So not necessarily a graduating high school senior, but a continuing education student. If you have questions, give me a call.
Yeah, cool. Please keep us posted of if you have staffing changes. So, if you've got turnover happening, new executive director or new staff that's going to be working with us, especially if it's our point of contact for a grant, keep us posted. I've had some really nice meetings with folks this year. So, as things shift and change, we know that always happens, but just keeping us in the loop is nice, especially because we are, as I mentioned in the first slide, kind of working on those. We want to build relationships and have relationships with you. So the way to do that is to keep those lines of communication open and keep us in the loop if you can think of it. I know it's busy sometimes when staff turns over, but and then finally, I just wanted to mention this as a FYI in case you had not heard of this before, but the Northern Michigan Shire, which is I don't remember the acronym. The important part is there's a lot of data here on this MyThrive platform, and I put the link in there. I don't want to spend time unpacking everything there because we want to make sure there's time for questions, but definitely